Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's good to be with you today. Many of you who have been with me for any amount of time know that in the NFL, that the third year of a player is called the money year. Now, I'd like to explain that a little bit, but there is a commonality among not all, but most guys, most people in leadership, that the third year a player is going to really show you who they are. Now that's important because you're going to see flashes, and depending on where a player's picked, you have different expectations. But year three, they call the money year. And that's a year where, guys really go out and make money and set themselves up. Because in the National Football League, I'm not going to pretend like they don't make a lot of money. They do. But where you really get into that, I mean, unless you're a first rounder, but and even some seconds, but where you really get into that generational wealth, those massive contracts now because of the rookie wage scale really comes with your second contract. And they call again, and it varies for who a person is, but they call the third year the money year. That's where guys they expect draft picks if they're going to be starters, if they're going to make that role to be fully there. Again, a first rounder, they would expect to be a starter in year two. But the third year on every player is generally considered in commonality of thought. That's a money year. This is a big year for them. They've got to take a step. After that, then you look at, all right, we can replace them because they're not progressing down the road of maturation. Now, sometimes they're able to tell that instantaneously. I mean, it's very evidentiary that this guy's not going to move. Let's move on. Okay, I'm thinking of Alex Leatherwood. I mean, the fact that the Raiders were willing to move on from him so fast told you everything that you needed to know. And we're going to talk today about 8 money year players on the Raiders squad. And very good football teams in the National Football League develop guys. They understand if I go out and pick up a free agent, he's going to take playing time away from guys that we want to develop. And a lot of times in the NFL, the fans, and this is not a slam, because they want to win now, which is what you should want. But they want to win now, so they don't look at the development. And so what happens is you'll see, I remember one time I was talking with an NFL free agent. I was standing on a field at training camp. And I said to him, what did you think of this team signing this guy? And his exact words to me were, that's a guy trying to keep his job because the fans are pissed. And he goes, that was such a dumb move. He goes, I understand why he did it, but that was some dumb move. And he named a player on their roster. He goes, he just took snaps away from that kid. He goes, and I think that kid can end up being pretty good. And it had literally ended up that player, that organization eventually let that backup player go. He went to another team where he got some reps and became a starter. Wasn't an all-pro, but became a very, very functional player. That's the process. That is the systemology of a successful team, is you want to be able to develop your guys for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's great on the salary cap. I understand they're still making a lot of money, but in NFL money, they're not making a lot, and you're bringing them along. Okay. There were a lot of people last year in a rookie year saying, oh, Chris Smith is a bust. Corian Bennett's a bust. that was mind-boggling to me. Okay. Did either one show you a reason to think, wow, they're you know, number one safety on this team? Nope. Did either one show you they're a number one corner on this team? Nope. But they were rookies adjusting. And again, you have Trayvon Merrick, who had been the number one safety in his class. Marcus Epps was everything that we had told you was going to be. There wasn't a lot of reps. It's like people said talking about Tyree Wilson. He wasn't even healthy at the end of the year. And when they originally picked him, Chandler Jones was here, and they did not anticipate him at all, hardly even playing. They thought, man, he is a dude, which y'all know the definition of that. He was a dude. And so people are like, oh, Tyree's a bust. Okay, you have to learn, everybody has a right to every opinion. And I respect that people have a right, but you also have a right to say that's foolishness and just set it aside. And so what you have to do with those three players is, first of all, Tyree, not even healthy last year, came on strong. The people saying that he's a complete bust, I personally can't even fathom that. I literally can't even fathom who someone with an understanding of the game of football saying he's a bust. No. I think he's a Hall of Famer. No. Am I convinced right now that Tyree Wilson's going to be Max Crosby? No. Christian Wilkins? No. But I'm not convinced of that of any rookie. Hardly ever. I can only think of maybe three rookies. Maybe. Where after a rookie year, I was like, wow. Okay. CJ Stroud. I thought CJ Stroud was really good last year. Really good. I think there's a lot of promise there. Do I think that I am right now willing to say unequivocally that he's a QB1 and a star in the league? No. I think he's really good. I think he's a starter. I think he's got a ton of potential, but he's a rookie. And so I would challenge you all, because I think that the Raider Nation are some of the best football minds. I would challenge you to begin to think of players as marathons, not sprints. Because here's the deal. When you keep plugging in free agents, very rarely do you get a free agent like a Christian Wilkins, who's very young and already a proven superstar. I had a GM tell me one time, I only take free agents for two reasons. He said, number one, if I got a chance to get a young superstar, I'm writing checks. Because that's as good as getting anything, only you get one who's already developed. He goes, but usually if you get those guys, it is a team that's not good managing, which I wouldn't say that's the case about Miami. Longtime listeners will appreciate that. But the second reason, he goes, is if we failed or had some type of, made a massive player injury, created a hole, and then it's a stopgap. So most of the time when you hire a free agent, it's a stopgap. Now let's go back to Robert Spillane, super young player that the Steelers, which do a very good job of developing guys, they wanted to keep. Was told that by people inside the organization desperately. They made him a very good offer. They had limited dollars for salary cap. They couldn't offer more. Raiders nailed him. Great pickup for the Raiders. And he's going to be here potentially a long time. Later on, because they lost some other guys, the Raiders then went and paid more for his replacement that they would have rather had him. So you just juxtapose the salary cap. So don't always look at free agents. You can look at them when they're young guys that you pick up or already developed superstars that you're going to have a multiplicity of years. Those are all good ones. But the stopgaps doesn't mean you don't want them. Okay, Alexander Mattison. The chances are he was brought in here to be a great backup. He's going to get reps. He's going to get touches. But he's not going to be, unless he emerges because of Zamir's failure, he's not brought in here to be the bell cow. Doesn't mean it wasn't a good signing. Doesn't mean that at all. Not even remotely that. But he's a good signing. He's in his prime. He's a good player, great guy. He's a good fit, a super good fit. Marcus Peterson last year, the reason there was the delay is they're going through OTAs and they saw some things from some of their corners. They thought, we're not going to rush to sign Marcus. Not going to rush. That was their whole mindset. And then they get to training camp. Some guys maybe didn't take the next step. They're like, all right, we need him. And they went and signed him, and we all know how that turned out. So there are different kinds. Jonathan Jenkins, Adam Butler, great signings. Guys came in and played a really important role. But again, not every answer is a free agent. So just keep that in mind if you would, please. All right, let's get into it. First guy, now some of these guys, when I talk about money year, are setting themselves up for enormous second contracts. Some are setting themselves up to stay in the league. Let's get into it. First one is Daren Butler. Darien is a linebacker out of Arizona State. They have a lot of history with him because of the Arizona State connection. Darien is a guy that has shown some important flashes of athleticism. Okay, but he's also a guy that has yet to flash. I'm ready. I'm ready to be a piece of this organization for a long time. This is a monster year for him. There's a lot of linebackers on this team. Amari Burney is a guy that, he's only going into year 2. So he still has some time to develop, and he's coming from a position change. But Robert Spillane's a stud. About, Divine Diablo. He's a tackling machine. Amari's there. That Luke Masterson's there, and we're going to talk about Luke in a minute. There are other players. Eichenberg, the rookie. There's only so many spots. And so Darien is a guy that's got to quickly, mandatory mini camp, and then, going into the season, does he make the practice squad? And then when he gets a chance to step up, at some point, you have to differentiate yourself as, okay, I'm a guy taking a roster spot. I'm talented enough to be in the NFL, but I'm not a starter. I'm not a this or that. I'm going to make some impacts on special teams. Or you got to impact saying, no, I'm a starter. I'm a guy that, even if I'm not a starter, I'm in your 2 deep. I'm reliable. There is nothing about, he's a wonderful guy. But it's nothing personal. He just now has to, he's year 3. He's got to make some plays where you're like, here is something that I would describe Butler. And again, this isn't personal. I genuinely really like him, and so do they. But you can go through a practice and he can make some plays, but you leave the practice field and go into the press room and begin to type and keep looking at your notes, and you don't see a place in your notes where you wrote Daren Butler, X, Y, Z, D, P, and Q. He doesn't do enough to get noticed, but doesn't for the good, but doesn't really do enough to get noticed for the bad. Now, money year, he's got to take that next step. And I'll get more into that in a minute. Another one is Jack Jones. Now you say, what, Hondo, wait a minute. He's a star. Look at him. Let me explain. Year 3. He is setting himself up now for a big deal. He is setting himself up now for big money. If he plays the rest of 2024 the way he paid the half a year or less than a half a year in 2023, he is going to set him. He still has one more year in his deal, but he will literally then establish the fact, okay, I got 1 year left on my first deal, and it's a very manageable, but I'm a money guy now. Now, I'm going to say this to you, and this may shock you a little bit. This is the first time where there isn't one guy on this team that I don't like. Now, admittedly, there are a couple I don't know well. And admittedly, there are a couple who I don't know people from their sphere of where they come from, whose opinion I trust. I also haven't seen enough to not like them, so that opinion could change. But my point is, this is a really, really good group of human beings, tremendous guys. So any comments that I make today are I assure you, if I didn't like somebody personally, I probably wouldn't tell you that. Although I was very open about Damon Arnett. Yeah, at this point, there's nobody that was at the Damon Arnett level. So I guess I just wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't be disingenuous and tell you I did like him if I didn't, and I probably not probably I wouldn't on this group tell you if there's something I don't like them. I just don't say anything. So sometimes people will say, "Man, it seems like you like everybody." Not always, but I'm just not one of those people that makes it a um, part of my modus operandi to say I don't. So, but Jack is a terrific person. He is. Um, there's an old saying where I'm from in the Midwest. If you don't know this, I'm from the cornfields of Laingsburg, Michigan, and the Christmas trees of Cadillac, Michigan. And there's an old saying where I'm from about you'll be talking about some old boy and you'll say he's good people. Jack Jones is that. Jack Jones is a guy that you know any teammates could call him at 2 a.m. Hey, my car's blew a tire. Can you come pick me up? I'm there, man. He is very genuine, extremely kind. I have found him to be extremely kind. Every single dealing I have ever had with Jack, I have walked away thinking, man, I like him. Very respectful, funny, honest, raw. Um, he is, um, he has the potential to be a genuine superstar, just person. I am rooting for. I love people who uh, have some failures in their life, and I love to see people who pick themselves up. I love rugged individualism, people who just, yep. My father used to say this all the time to his children. Remember, don't judge somebody by their scars because they could be stars. And he would always tell us, don't define people by mistakes. Now, there are some level of mistakes that you do, and I get that. But he would always just say, you know what, my dad, he was always famous for saying, I wouldn't give you a plug nickel. And he'd say, I wouldn't give you a plug nickel for somebody that ain't been through something. And Jack has. But he is a hard worker. He works hard. He is appreciative to be a Raider. He's in that building. He's willing to help receivers. He's willing to help young players, and he's one of them. He's very respectful of the veterans. He's able to keep things lighthearted but not to the point where he's not serious. I will totally admit to you the respect that I have for Antonio Pierce. And you know how I am. If I have immense respect for somebody and I trust them, their opinion means a lot to me. And I know what AP doesn't like Jack Jones. He loves him. He genuinely loves him as a human being, as a guy. And the other players on this team who I hold in high respect feel that about Jack Jones. Okay, that says something. I have watched Jack tear up um, about his teammates, about what they mean to him. Last year, before the draft, he takes to Twitter and talked about this team doesn't need anybody because he loves his teammates. When he walks through the door, you have a genuine sense that he appreciates what it's like to be here every day. And so he's coming in, he is setting himself up for generational wealth. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat. There are some people in our society that when others prosper, they get mad or jealous. I was not raised that way. I love to see people prosper. I love to see people succeed. I am pulling for Jack Jones because I want him, A, to get generational wealth, to be able to go back and help all of his entire family. I believe he's got enough people around him like Marvin Lewis and Antonio, but some others who will appropriately help him handle that. I don't know if I had been raised in the same circumstances of Jack that I would be where I am today. So where he is very impressive to me. I certainly had a much easier path to being a successful 53-year-old man than he's had to be where he is. And I respect him. I think that's the best. I don't just like him, I respect him. And if he can repeat for a full year what he did last year, he is setting himself up for generational success. And I want that for him. I want that for everybody, quite frankly. But he is a guy that if you knew him, you would be pulling for him. I got an email a few weeks ago from a lady whose son's birthday was coming up. And she said to me, I am writing you because I'm a parent and you're a parent. And I believe in following you, that being a parent is super important to you, which it is. It's the third most important thing in my life. And she said, my son really likes Jack Jones, but I don't want to buy him a Jack Jones jersey if he's not a good guy. I don't want my son to, I'd rather direct him towards a couple of other players. And she said, I know you can't be responsible, but just based on what you know, what would you say about Jack Jones? And this is a paraphrase, but this is what I told the lady. I said, buy the jersey. Jack would be open with your child about some mistakes he's made. But Jack would also be open with your child that he had to grow up, he had to make changes, and he had to do some things. I said, is he a squeaky clean guy who's never been through anything? Nope. But is he a guy who's been through some stuff, pulled himself up by the bootstrap? He's a rugged individualist and a great guy. Yes. And I told her, buy the jersey, buy the jersey. I'll end with this. My sister one time was dating a guy who just everything about him seemed perfect. His hair, the way he dressed, never been through anything. I mean, just I hope you're getting the drift where I'm going. Just everything. He was a model of perfection. And my sister said to father and I was standing there. And I think one of my other brothers, I think my brother Greg was there, maybe my brother Scott, but one of my brothers was there. And my dad, she goes, he's a knight in shining armor. This is what my dad. My dad's drinking a cup of coffee and he goes, run. My sister goes, what do you mean run? He said, baby, you don't want a knight in shining armor. That means he spends all of his time polishing and he's not in the fight. You want a guy whose armor has some mud, some blood, and some dents. Because you know he ain't afraid of the fight. He's been through some stuff. I'll never forget my day. Because as a father, your heart is, hey, go get the knight in shining armor. I'm a dad. I got daughters. That's exactly how I feel. Well, how I think I would feel. But that really touched me. And I remember at one time, one of my dad's sons, I'd gone through some tough times and made some mistakes. And my dad put his arm around him and said, wouldn't give you a plug nickel for a guy that hasn't been through some stuff and found his way out because he's a survivor. He's a fighter. And he goes, I wouldn't give you a plug nickel for a guy that's gone into some stuff, but I would value a guy that's been through some stuff. That's Jack. So great player, great instincts, very coachable. There's a saying that I use all the time. You want to be fat, faithful, available, teachable. And it's true for football players. It's true for us as human beings. Whatever you do for a living, you want to be fat, faithful, available, teachable. That's critically important if you're going to be a success at anything in your life. Faithful, available, teachable. I teach that to my children. I talk about it all the time. Jack's fat. All right, next one. Luke Masterson, the linebacker out of Wake Forest. So let me give you an example between him and Daren Butler. There are multiple plays that Luke has made where he's flashed. I think that he has a genuine future in this league. I think he could be a very solid Robert Spillane type player. He has not demonstrated that with consistency yet. But on special teams, he shines. When he gets in there, he shines. So he definitely has that ability to be that wonderful kid. I remember one time we were talking about something and something that had been written about him. And he goes, I didn't even see it. My family reads everything. I don't. Just, he is he reminds me of a young Ron Howard, Richie Cunningham from Happy Days, if you're older. I remember I recently referenced Richie Cunningham, and one of my kids looked at me like, who's that? And I said, the director, Ron Howard. Oh, he was an actor? Boy, did I fail as a parent. Just excited to be there. Isn't a guy that walks in thinking because he's in an NFL locker room that he uh, was entitled to it. Hard worker, man. That kid. I watched him one time where he had practiced and practice was over. And I think it was when they were down in West Virginia last year. And man, he's just putting in extra reps, just working it. That kid's a work. He works hard. He's a thumper. But he's got a chance to, if he doesn't break the starting lineup, then he's got a chance to make, another contract because he's one of those guys. You win Super Bowls with Luke Masterson. Just that guy that's that backup that you can trust. I think he can play himself into a starter's role. I think he can. But for sure, absolutely reliable backup guy. But again, moneyed guy. But he's had more flashes than Butler, a lot more. He has it. And again, good kid. Nobody dislikes him. He belongs in the National Football League. He's fun to watch. He's really fun to practice. Sometimes at practice, I go with specificity. I got to watch this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And if I get a chance, I just love to watch Masterson. And just all around great kid. To the best of my knowledge, I've never met his family, and he's good people. They did a good job raising that kid. All right, next, this is a guy on the precipice of making with an opportunity. Big Jack, Thayer Mumford. Let's talk about Thayer now. 7th round draft pick. Now, I want to tell you something about Thayer. I have had the advantage of knowing Thayer back to when he was in high school, because you may remember I covered the Big Ten before I moved to Vegas to cover the Raiders. Thayer, a lot of people misunderstand him, and I feel bad for him because of that. He does not take himself too seriously. He's not an egomaniac. Makes a lot of jokes, fools around, because he goes through life with all right, I only get one of these. I'm going to make sure I enjoy it. Last year, he had a lot of reasons to be frustrated with Josh McDaniels. I'm not going to get into a lot of details. He's not here anymore. It doesn't matter. I will just say there was a lot of leading him to believe he was going to be the right tackle. I want to, yeah, we'll just leave it there. And so even through that, even through it, was he frustrated? I believe he was. But he still smiled. He still kept his chin up. And look at how he played when Antonio Pierce took over. Again, this is another guy I really like. But I've said that about all of them. They're good men. They're really good men. But Thayer is going to get a big opportunity. I remember throughout the draft process, I would keep saying there are 3 dudes in the draft: Joe Alt, Talise Fuaga, and Brock Bowers. There are other really good players. Okay. Because I said to you, so many people were going to make bad draft picks. I thought there was a chance of Talise Fuaga falling to the Raiders, and there was. And he was a dude. If Brock Bowers would not have been there, they would have taken Talise Fuaga. But if Talise had not been there, they weren't taking another tackle. They believe in Thayer. If the 3 dudes weren't there, they would have went with Terry and Arnold. But that was, but I continually said throughout the draft process, everybody's overlooking Thayer. They believe in Thayer. And because a lot of people saw them tied to Talise Fuaga, they just assumed, oh man, they're out on Thayer. That was not the case whatsoever. There was a lot of thought. Okay, if Talise's there and not Brock, which nobody thought Brock would be there, so I shouldn't have even said that. But if Talise's not there, I mean, if Talise's there, we take him. Okay, what about there? Okay, man, we're set. He'll be our swing guy. We've got Colton. We've got Talise, and Thayer will be able to step in as a starter. And maybe even eventually, if when Colton retires or whatever, because they still had another year in his contract. There was a lot of reasons that nobody in this organization doesn't believe in Thayer. There was no concern. Remember, they had Brock and Talise, who they thought both were dudes. If there was as great a concern as some made it sound like it right tackle, it would have been Fuaga. But because of their faith in Thayer, Brock was a no-brainer. It was so those who outside of the building that didn't believe in Thayer Um, that's fine. They're welcome to have any opinion that they want, any opinion, but did make it accurate. And so sometimes people's opinion is based off perception of people. But the problem is, if your perception isn't good, then who you're getting your perception from clouds yours. So I want you to know Thayer has set himself up. If he comes in, and I'm going to tell you something, he played really good last year. And this is something that I want to caution you of. I laugh sometimes because people will send me tweets. I am not yet as comfortable with IG. So I apologize. People send me stuff all the time and I don't get it. And I just, I want to. I want to. God bless you, Anthony Taylor. But I want to, but I'm not comfortable with IG like I am with Twitter. But people will send me stuff and I'm like, oh, well, look at this mistake. Okay, well, you can take any one piece of film and do a mistake. So there's several things that people sent me, but I want to use one in particular. Last year, there was a play where Colton Miller's job was to let a man release to the inside, and then he was to be looking for a linebacker coming off the edge or a blitzing safety or a corner. That's what this particular play design was. Okay. And so Colton slides over and a different Raider offensive lineman made a massive mistake. So Colton looks and there's no guy there for him to block. So he comes back over to help. Now, remember, this was not his job. This is Colton being a star. Man, my guy's not there. I'm looking to help. And they're like, look at this huge mistake by Colton Miller. The guy blows by him. Colton playing terrible. Colton didn't make a mistake at all. It was another guy made a mistake. So listen, it is one thing. Well, I'll give you another one. There was a pass last year that went viral that everyone's like, oh, Aiden O'Connell sucks. Okay. And literally, Aiden was supposed to throw to a spot and put the ball right on the money. And the receiver, who was a veteran, just made a mistake. That happens. It happens. It's the game of football. The other team's getting paid a lot of money to force you to make mistakes. People, oh, this right here told you Aiden has no sense of balance and accuracy. He sucks. Are you kidding? One of Aiden's biggest strengths, regardless of who you ask in the NFL, is accuracy. So it's not just watching film. You have to know what you're watching. You have to know what you're watching. I mean, watching a TikTok doesn't make you a physicist, even if it's about physics. My wife is a very talented and highly sought after, successful nurse. I cannot tell you, and I literally don't remember, there's been so many, how many doctors have recognized her, given her honors where she saved patients' lives. I remember one time in particular, she's called me, she's on her break. She says, please pray for me. I go, why? She goes, I am almost in an argument with a doctor with this patient. And she shared with me, they have laws, HIPAA laws. Just she couldn't give me details or anything, but just because I believe this patient is much more sick than they're giving him care. And she went to this doctor and just said, listen, I respect you. I appreciate you. I know that you're a doctor and I'm a nurse, but I've been a nurse a long time and you're a young doctor. Please hear me. If I'm wrong, write me up, but you're making a critical mistake. And she laid out cases, doctor. She she my wife may be 5 foot and 100 pounds, but when she stands up, when she believes in something. The doctor looked at her and said, I trust you. So I'm going to do what you suggest, but I disagree with you. But I trust you. And I appreciate, even though you have vehemently made it clear to me that you disagree with me, you've been respectful. That night, she gets a phone call, and it's a very emotional doctor who said, you saved that patient's life. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Not to that extreme, but where doctors have called her and said, man, you picked up on this, whatever. It's one thing to watch a TikTok about nursing. It's another when a longtime nurse or doctor says to you, no, this is the medical facts. I remember one time with Dexter. And I thought, man, this kid's terrible. We got to take him to the emergency room. She's like, no, we don't. He's fine. Go back to bed. All right. Then one time, Dexter and I were playing. We got to get him to the hospital. That's not good. What are you talking about? He's great. We're playing. Nope. We got him to there and he was fine. I mean, we got it handled. So remember, watching film is and Thayer is a great example. Watching film is just not the be all end all. The person explaining the film or watching it has to know what they're looking at. Just giving you that warning, because a lot of people overlook Thayer who shouldn't have. And because they're worse. Now, do I think he's played perfect? No. Would he tell you he has? No. But I'm telling you, last year he played tremendously well. Tremendously well. And the interest in Talise Fuaga was because of the level of a player Talise is. And it was not a slam on Thayer. If you sleep on Thayer Mumford, you're missing it. Okay, next I want to talk about Dylan Parham. I mean, how many times I got to talk about this guy? He's a superstar. Entering his third year, starts every game, hard worker. I don't even have enough good to say about Dylan Parham. He is an Art Shell, Gene Upshaw type of dude. He was so locked in there next to Colton. But because of his maturity, they're going to be able to move him to the right, to be next to Thayer, to help Thayer, to allow JPJ between Colton and between Andre. That way you don't have two young guys on the right. That just tells you everything you need to know about his maturity. He is a lunch pail, blue collar, great. He is a great guy. You spend 5 minutes with Dylan Parham and you walk away and you're like, that guy is just salt of the earth. He is good people, man, where I'm from. He cracks me up. And what's really cool is he loves football, but man, his family's so important to him. And he is as genuine as the day is long. He is not impressed with himself. He is not he doesn't walk around with I'm in the NFL. I'm no, he is humble. He is just a guy who has been so reliable. And they put a ton of trust in him. And he has grown through it. He has demonstrated through it. The best compliment you can get him is he just comes to work every day. He does not have the flashy personality of a Max Crosby. And when I say that, that's not a slam. Everyone knows what I think of Max. I'm just saying, you're not going to see him with the gold jewelry all over, and he's not as vociferous as him. But he is, he just comes to work. If a young player goes to him, he'll help them. but he's just that guy. He's just that man, I can't even think of the word. He's just glue. Yeah, he's a glue guy. I love that guy. He's one of those guys is going to hold your locker room together. When he is kicking butt. I remember one time I did an interview. I said, Dylan, right now, you are playing at such a high level. Well, I would probably watch the film and think something different. Just that's him. And when he's struggling a little bit, I'm just really watching the film. And I don't even know that struggling is the word, but maybe when there's an area he can improve, I'm watching the film and whatever. He's just that guy. Now, offensive linemen are built differently. That's why I let me hang out with the big uglies. Put me with the offense and defensive linemen. I'm a happy guy. Dylan is that he's a superstar. He's a guy that you expect to be a Raider for 8 more years, start every game. He's a guy that if he can't play, he's injured. Remember, there's a difference between hurt and injured. I mean, he's a guy that I mean, if nothing's going to keep him off the field unless he just can't go. And here's the cool part. You need some of those guys who are just quiet assassins. You need them. You got to have them. You can't have a locker room full of all, but he is a guy that has a voice. And I'm going to tell you something about Dylan. And I was told this by one of his teammates. Dylan is a guy that he is not afraid to speak. He's not timid. That's a bad, bad man right there. He is a bad, bad man. Remember, interior offensive lineman in the NFL is playing the game of football in a phone booth. It is a brutal beating every single play when you are an interior lineman in the National Football League. And so when you can't play there and not be tough. You look up the word tough in the Webster's dictionary and it says, see, Dylan, good kid. It's a good kid. But he's got a chance to make some money. Next, we go to Isaiah Pola-Mao, safety out of USC. There's been some flashes. Now there's got to be another step. Got Trey Taylor in there. That rook. Trey Taylor coming. And, IPM. I like this young man. First of all, just good kid. He makes me laugh. Every time he talks, makes me laugh. Just humble kid. Good kid. And I say kid. I don't mean that disrespectfully. We all know they're adults. I'm just an old man, 53 years old. But this is a money year for him. This is a big year. This is a very big year for him. He's got to make that money. And this is the year where he's going to have to separate himself and say, hey, I belong here. I need to be here. You need to, I need to do enough for you to say, yeah, that the IPM, again, he has the talent. There's some guys on this list, and I don't mean this at all disrespectful. Daren Butler hasn't, there's two guys on this list that haven't done enough that you're sure they're going to be around for a long time. Or at least that maybe the thinking is, all right, we got to keep our eye out about moving on from him. Isaiah's a guy that they're looking for a reason for them to. They're not one of those guys that they're thinking, all right, we may go another way. They're like, all right, come on, keep giving us reasons. But now it's consistency. Daren Butler, IPM, and the next guy are all in the same boat. Consistency. Next, DJ Turner, wide receiver at Pitt. Done some things. But money here is not done some things, but is the thing. That's the big year about money year. Good kid, reliable, but has only flashed. Just like Daren Butler, little flashes. Now, IPM, Luke Masterson have done more than flash. They've put a lot of reasons there. These two guys haven't. I don't not believe in DJ at all. Believe in him. Believe in him. But he now has to do it, put it out there. Good kid. But he's got to put it out there now. And then last is the guy setting himself up for big. Well, all right. Zamir White. I say big money because but we understand the way that running backs are paid in this league. Now, he has 2 years of very little tread off the tire. Very little tread off the tire. So, next 2 years can be big and then set himself up for a 3-year extension or maybe even a franchise tag, which is still huge money. He's playing for a lot of money now. I'm going to tell you something. I'm in the Z camp. I'm in the Zamir White camp, my brothers and sisters. That guy, I believe in him. Immensely believe in him. He did some things last year that a couple of people in the building said, go back and watch this. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even see that. Didn't see that. And I'm gonna be talking a lot about Zamir White before training camp. In fact, going to do a full podcast just about Zamir White and share some of those things. Vision, footwork, a lot. But Zamir White is setting himself up for a lot of money. And it's a money year for him. This is the first time now for the full year. Here's the rock. He needs to be healthy every game. Needs to demonstrate that. That was the biggest area where Josh Jacobs just failed. And being healthy is not a failure of character. It's just reality. The best ability is availability. Zamir has to demonstrate that. There's not been a concern that he can't. He now has to demonstrate it. Listen, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate all of you. Go to IG, follow me at Hondo SR, Twitter at Hondo Carpenter, SI.com/NFL/Raiders. I think yesterday, I don't remember the amount. I think it was something like 14 articles or something around those lines. We always have 10 or more every day, plus reels, plus videos, and a bunch more. Love talking to you every day. Thanks for talking ball with us. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful day. God bless you and enjoy your Sunday. Hope you get to be with some family and enjoy the day. Now, if I can find that button over here. Sorry, my cursor moves around.